All right, we are live. Another week, another What the F happened, and there is lots happening, but it's also the day before Thanksgiving. So I also want to make sure I take a pause in all the ranting, the raving, and the news just to say thank you and give gratitude, because that's what Thanksgiving's all about. If you trace it back, there's the good, the bad, the ugly, but there is really just one thing that we all should be, and that is thankful. Thankful for being here on WTF is where we're going to start, right, Stephen?
That's right. That's right.
All right. So we got lots of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about TD Bank. We're going to talk about how TD Bank and 10 of their merry little men and women were running a ginormous cover up for the cartel and a money laundering scheme the size of Godzilla. They are being fined in excess of $3 billion. I don't know how TD Bank will even make it through that, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how that is just one of the many signs you're starting to see as the tide starts to go out, as the economy starts to slow. But you would never know the economy is slowing. You'd never know there's problems by watching the stock market or watching Bitcoin. It just seems like everything's going up, up, and up, and that is normal. That is absolutely normal for where we're at right now. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to hit on a whole bunch of other things. Folks, stay with us. This episode of What the F Happened is going to be thankful. We'll see you in a bit. All right, we're back at it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this pre-Turkey Day, pre-Thanksgiving episode of What the F Happened. I think a lot of people, Stephen, were kind of like, wow, you guys are doing WTF the day before Thanksgiving. I'm like, yeah. My wife this morning was like, you're working today? I'm like, what has gone wrong with people? Like, everybody just takes off. Like, listen, the day after Thanksgiving is Black Friday. I'm going to not be doing anything while everybody else goes out there, gets in fist fights, waits in long lines, and gobbles up the deals with the credit cards to add on to the massive amount of debt we as citizens of the United States have amounted and amassed. It's literally in the trillions. It's wild. We're going to talk about that. Stephen, what else can we hit on today?
Yeah, man, it's just it's a wild time right now. We had the election; it's out of the way, so everybody's kind of
But is it really out of the way? That's the thing I want to talk about. Is it out of the way? Because we are going to talk about the crap going on, and I've got some interesting intel on World War III in the making, and that's a scary thought.
Yeah, I mean, Kamala came out with her first appearance video since the election, and
dude, she was drunk, man.
Hitting the eggnog a little early this holiday season, but we can get it out a little bit. But yeah, man, just sitting down here in Florida, though. It's Thanksgiving tomorrow, like you said. It's a lot to be thankful for. It was a really good year. We all met in Buffalo up at the BYOB headquarters last week, and had annual planning meetings reviewing 2024 and looking into 2025 and what we're going to do. And, we've had a lot of growth, a lot of cool things happen this year, a lot of new people come on the team, and really excited for next year and what we're going to be bringing out with everybody when it comes to BYOB and the Private Money Club. And we got some new ideas and some new events and some new stuff happening. So excited to share that with everybody soon. But right now, just kind of, at that holiday mode where, like you said, are people working today? Are they not? I don't know, but we're doing our thing. To me, this is fun. So it's all good on Wednesdays. We get to do this at 9:30 a.m. We do a wealth webinar, obviously at 1 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Make sure you're joining us for that. We do Ask Me Anything with the whole team, and holiday editions of Ask Me Anything are always fun. So I'll try and get the troops riled up, maybe dressed up in some kind of Thanksgiving costumes today. We'll have some fun with that. So today's a fun day. I get to meet with all of our agents on on BYOB. And we do that at 3:00 every Wednesday for new agents and talk through what's going on with different people's infinite banking policies and systems. So fun days on Wednesdays, but I am looking forward to tomorrow, sitting around, maybe not doing much of anything, watching some football, eating a lot of food. And then, right back to it. December, it's going to be busy, busy, busy right up until Christmas and New Year's. So it's one of those times where you can sit back, reflect a little bit. But like you said, Chris, don't take your foot off the gas because we're go, 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 baby. But a lot going on in the news, so we can get to it today.
Yeah, and I want to just drop one thing, just a little teaser to everybody. Some of you will remember this, some of you may not, but you will soon know exactly what it is. MSTV is worldwide. I'm just kidding. We did a lot of funny videos on MSTV worldwide, but MSTV is coming back big time. So if you're already in MSTV, you just wait to what's coming. If you're not in MSTV, you are going to want to be there because that's where all the cool kids are going to be, and you got to be one of them. So let's dive into the news, not waste any time. So, one of the things I like talking about all the time is interest rates. I love talking about interest rates, and the Fed has been in the eye. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit differently about the Fed in a moment based on a post that I put up on Facebook that I'm getting weird comments, and we'll hit on that, but it was all about the Fed. So the Fed is going to be talking today. So I believe today we're awaiting the Fed's preferred inflation reading. Is inflation going up? Is it going down? Or is it the same? And what is inflation going to do in the future? Well, with Trump's tariffs, I can tell you inflation will tick up in the near term, and then it will come back down and level out after. But that is just the price we pay to write this country, because that's what we're doing. We're writing this country because it is wrong right now. Very wrong. And we're going to talk about some real wrong shit, like missiles being launched into Russia, authorized by Biden's administration. But then he says, no, we didn't do it. It was the state that did that. So nobody's taking responsibility of who said you can launch missiles, U.S. missiles, onto Russian territory, which, make no two ways about it, is deemed an act of war. But I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to the Fed. So one of the things the Fed is looking at doing is continuing their downward pressure on interest rates and cooling off interest rates. So with that, just today in the news, Treasury yields fall as investors await the Fed's preferred. So you've heard me talking about this a lot, and I'm just going to share something here really quick, folks, because this should be no surprise to anybody, but I just want to show you this, just to show you when you hear yields on treasuries are going down, what that essentially is saying is the price is going up, as you can see right here. So if we can look here, 6 months, when you look at this chart, you can see here's where we've been going. Okay. So, and if I did actually a longer one, here's a better way. This is where we've been going with interest rates down, 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 down. Okay. Or interest rates were going up and the price was going down. My mistake. So interest rates are going up. The price was going down this whole period of time. Now interest rates are going down and the price is going up. So when yields go down, price goes up. And that is one thing I'm super excited about, because treasury bonds, those nice, boring, cozy, long-term treasuries you constantly hear me talking about, we are starting to see that upward tick. But how far must we go? Well, depending on where you want to exit, but this is the climb back up that you'll see in price. And you just watch it. Just pay close attention to inflation, because that is the one thing that's going to kind of derail the price movement of treasury bonds. But I think you got a lot of things coming, and we're going to get into some of those things, not just on WTF, because it's not really in the news, but we're going to definitely be getting into that in Wealth Webinar this afternoon. So, Stephen, what is your take on the Fed?
Yeah, I mean, they're coming out, so S&P is kind of just hovering right now, just watching the markets. The Dow is kind of hovering right now, not making a lot of moves, but awaiting key inflation report later today. So it seems like everybody's kind of sitting around with that. And S&P edged lower on Wednesday as traders await release of the Federal Reserve's favorite inflation gauge. The broad market index shed 0.1%. Personal consumption expenditures price index, or PCE, is set for release at 10 a.m. Today. And so economists polled by Dow Jones expect a year-over-year increase. So I guess the Fed is going to use this data to kind of start deciding what the next move is for those interest rates. And like you said, that's going to affect, everything at the end of the day. So a lot of data coming in right now that that's going to affect things moving forward. But more importantly, Chris, it's one of those feelings, I see people's different posts on social media and things like that. And somebody made a comment the other day, and it was like talking about how airlines have record travel this holiday season right now for Thanksgiving. And I feel like every year these airlines have record travel, but nonetheless, they're having record travel this year, I guess, for Thanksgiving. So the person's comment was, oh, airlines have record. Oh, but the economy's doing so bad. Like, no, the economy's doing great. Like, what are people talking? Because that was one of the things, leading to the election. And in reality, though, do things like travel, do things like spending. Is that a gauge for the economy, or is that something else? Because we see the stock market at all-time highs. We see Bitcoin at all-time highs. We see record travel at all-time highs. We see all this stuff going on. So it makes you feel like, oh, things must be really jamming out there and pumping out there. Things are going to be great for a long time to come. But is that reality? And that's the only thing I get a little worried about, is people are going to fall into complacency and feel like things are okay. And then, is there a rug that's going to get pulled out from under them? And so that's what I'm always looking at. We talk about the credit card debt, still record levels, increasing more every day. People are still, the jobs are not what they appear to be. It's all government jobs. And then you look at what the Trump administration wants to do with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, with Elon Musk, and they want to go in. So if most jobs and hiring right now is coming from government jobs, but they want to slash all that, like, what's that going to do? They're saying that something like 60-70% of federal workers don't even go to the office, maybe one day a week, if that. But they're still getting paid these high-level salaries like they're right there in DC. So if they start cutting that back, what's going to happen there? So, well, I think, Trump coming in, and you see all these announcements, CEOs are relieved with these cabinet picks, especially with the Treasury pick we can talk about with Scott Bessent in a second. But it's like, what's going to happen in these coming years, man? It's just, there's a lot up there that I think it's kind of unprecedented right now. Never really seen
I
it.
think we're going to have to kind of get a campaign going, make offices great again. I don't know. I mean, hey, like, listen, we got to kind of realize that this new wave can't last forever, and I know some industries will continue with the work at home kind of thing, but I just don't feel that works in the government sector. I could be wrong. I totally could be wrong, but I just feel like there's a little bit of efficiency problem there. And I think Elon Musk sees that as well. And that's, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that. But I want to share this here real quick.
Fast, before you get there, let me pull this up real fast, just showing household debt, just to give you an idea of this. So this was coming from Q3 of 2024, which of course will be July, August, and September of this year. But household debt ticks up $17.94 trillion. Delinquency rates remain elevated. So we continue to go up. I mean, if we look at these charts here, this is going back to 2004. But you see 2004, obviously we had the big bubble happen, the big, what do we call it, the Great Recession after 08, leading into 2012. This is when real estate started to kind of turn back around. But we still saw debts falling. People didn't really have spending. Their credit was shot, so they weren't able. And then all of a sudden things, zero interest rate environment, credit started becoming free money again. And we just started to see it climb. Of course, over the last several years, over the last few years, really seeing a huge increase. And so there's just no end in sight here. And this is just not sustainable. And so this is the stuff that I look at when everyone else is saying things are great. It's like, well, let's really look at this. Like, is right now a good time with stocks at an all-time high to maybe do something different? Maybe we should think about where our money is right now. And of course, we talk about that on Wealth Webinars. So make sure you join us at 1 p.m. today for that.
Yeah. I mean, what does that say? 17.94 trillion. Is that what consumer debt was in that? I mean, that's just insane, folks. I just did a YouTube video all about that, and really specifically talking about Christmas and how much, like, historically, Christmas, that one holiday, adds to consumer debt, more specifically credit card debt. And I gave people a better opportunity. Like, instead of using their bank, their credit card, paying them interest, pay yourself the same interest and be the bank. And I want to hit Ryan, I think it is, Ryan. Hello, Chris, watching from South Africa, but asking, can an LLC own a BYOB policy? Yes, it's called COLI, company-owned life insurance, very popular. Oh, and look at that. Lazy Cash makes his appearance. He is in the house. But yes, your policy can be owned by an LLC, a trust. Pretty much any entity can own the policies. But yeah, credit card debt, massive problem. And it's definitely going to be, the one that folds the whole thing.
And it's not just credit cards. I mean, if you look at this,
Car
HELOC, it's
loans.
showing let me pull it back up. So HELOC balances increased by $7 billion to reach 387 billion. So if you're kind of new to our campfire, HELOCs are what's called a home equity line of credit. So if you bought a home for 200 grand and it's worth 500 grand today, you have $300,000 in equity that if you go get a HELOC, for example, it's one way of doing it. You could tap into the equity of that home and then you can use that money for other things. And what unfortunately the majority of Americans do is they use the equity in their homes to go do spending. They use it for things that maybe they shouldn't use it for. And what happens is now they have a HELOC payment, which when you're doing great is fine. But what happens if the economy does start to shift, you lose a job, bills get more expensive, whatever the case is, you can't pay for that HELOC. Well, now your home is in jeopardy. So when I see it reminds me a little bit about going into 2008 back in the day, we start to see people tapping to their equity. What happens when those people can't make that payment back? Well, those homes get foreclosed on, and that starts a bit of a snowball. So that worries me a little bit. Now, we teach, obviously, tapping into equity and things like your home, where you're using that money to grow wealth, to be financially smart with the money. And so there's different ways of looking at this, but unfortunately, the majority of people are using this to go into more debt for frivolous type things. And so that kind of worries me a little bit too when I look at that data.
Definitely. And one of the, just recently I put a post up on Facebook, and we got this idea to do a short where it basically is like we use a third-party article of what advice do you have for Donald Trump before he takes office. And I go on and I talk, and right now he's kind of made the same comments JFK was making about abolishing the Fed or going after the Fed and that. Now, listen, I've read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've read The Secrets of the Fed. I've studied the Fed, and I did a lot of that several years ago when I was really trying to understand what is the Fed, what is their purpose, what do they do, why do they do it, and how do they impact general overall life. And obviously, the Fed is a very secretive organization, not owned by the government at all. It is completely independent. It was set up in 1913. I mean, if you want to learn all about that, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve is a great book. It's a gold copied book. It used to be banned, but now it is on Amazon. You can get it. And then Creature from Jekyll Island is epic, and just an epic book if you want the ultimate deep dive into the Fed and the problems with the Fed. And be ready, because in the end of that book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, he literally predicts everything that's happening today. And he wrote that book a long time ago. But the Fed, one of the things that scares me about some of the stuff that Trump is saying and doing is this right here, shared in this Forbes article, why a huge clash is coming between Trump and the Federal Reserve. And, if you remember, Jerome Powell was asked by a reporter, are you going to step down? And his answer was just no. That was his answer. No. And he's right. Like, Trump cannot make him step down. It's a private institution, private organization. Like, there's really no influence that Trump can put on the Fed outside of literally pulling out, just abolish the Fed. I suppose that could be done, but at what cost? Listen, the Fed, the number one job of the Fed is to protect the dollar, and they will go at any cost. I mean, starting wars, you can believe what you want to believe about JFK, but it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald that killed JFK. Like, let's be honest. I think we all should probably know that by now. It was the Fed, no question. Like, and hopefully Trump declassifies those records, and we actually finally, for the first time in all these years, hear what really happened. But when you look at this right here, Trump's got a lot of things he's trying to do. There's just a ton of things in his agenda. There's a lot of policies that he's going to put in place. And I'm going to hit on tariffs because somebody asked me up here on Instagram if I could talk a little bit about tariffs. And, we're definitely going to come back to TD Bank and the cartel, but specifically tariffs. Tariffs, a lot of people don't like the fact, that Trump is going to put tariffs. I mean, 60% on all goods from Canada, which right now, some of the goods, that we import from Canada or exports to, I'm sorry, did I say Canada? I'm said China. There's already huge tariffs, and tariffs are nothing new, but you have to understand how tariffs works. But going back to this thing, if he's got all these initiatives, and then one of the other initiatives is going after the Fed, I just feel that's a dangerous proposition. I mean, like, I think one of the big things we all need to, to really think about is like, how does Trump stay alive? And I hate to say that, but that's a reality. I mean, already 2 assassination attempts that we know of, and taking office, he's gotta stay alive. that's a frightening thing. But when
You,
you're talking about,
you mentioned Kennedy. You mentioned Kennedy, Chris. You mentioned, the attempts on his life. Do you think we'll ever actually hear anything about the first one, especially the kid that climbed up on the roof with everyone pointing him out for hours ahead of time? They knew about him. They saw him. All the excuses. They cremated the body within like a week without telling anybody. There was never any toxicology reports released. His entire home was completely scrubbed. There was no fingerprints or silverware or anything inside his parents' home. There was zero, maybe the first, what was he, 20 years old, 20-some-year-old kid that had zero social media presence in the United States of America, none at all. Like all this stuff do you think we'll ever get any kind of investigation into that now? Or is that going to be like a Kennedy thing where it's
gosh, I don't know. I think there's so much we don't know. Yeah, I think there's so much we don't know, and it's probably good that we don't know a lot of the things that we don't. But I don't know if we'll ever know. Things just get swept under the rug, and we have short-term memories. Think about it. I mean, like so many of the things that are important one day, then just a few short weeks later, like they're out of our minds. Or like we're on to the next thing. And I think the media does a great job of keeping us distracted. It's like, ooh, piece candy, look over here. Not, take your focus off of what we really should probably focus on and get it over on this other side. And I don't have an answer. I don't know. What's the audience think? You think we'll ever know? You think we'll ever hear what happened to that kid that, shot that bullet at Trump, nicked his ear? You think we'll ever know what really happened to JFK and what was really behind that? That's the more important one I'd like to know. I don't know.
Such a bizarre world we live in. I mean, makes you wonder if there's an alternative universe, talk about multiverses where, he was shot. And what does the world look like today if Trump if that was a successful attempt? I mean, things like that, it's pretty wild.
Let me hit one question. Then I want to move on to tariffs real quick. Just hit that question up on Instagram here. But Flowers in Shrooms on YouTube coming in said, hey guys, I'm an American living abroad. Do I need to come home to the US to set up an account with the insurance company, or can I do it via email? So that's a great question. We get this question all the time. Yes, unfortunately, you would have to have your medical done here in the States. So you could do the applications and everything remote from wherever you're at, but the medical would have to be here, and you'd have to obviously have an address and bank accounts in the United States of America. So a lot of people ask us that because they're abroad, not sure if you're military or if you're just kind of just traveling the world doing things abroad. But you'd have to make a quick little hop over here, hop over the pond and come here to get your medical done, and then you can head on back to where you're at. Let's see. I think that's the question. So Stephen, let's just take a second. If you got any stuff on tariffs, I've done a lot of research, probably more than I wanted to on tariffs. And I did a deep dive last week on WTF. So I'm just going to do a abbreviated version today. And I've done many YouTube videos on tariffs. But there's a lot of people out there, a lot of influencers, if you will, out there, like making this big stink that tariffs are bad. It's going to make everything cost more. And you know what? They're right. Tariffs will make goods more expensive. There, I said it. But you're not looking at the real reason. You're not looking at the big impact. Right now, okay, we have a trade deficit with China, which means we export. It's a difference between our exports and our imports. We import over $460 billion more than we export to China. Let's just talk about that. We are funding the CCP. We are funding our enemy. We are giving them the money to build a military, to build bombs, to build missiles, to be ready for cyber attacks. And who is on their radar? Who's their number one enemy? If you really want to get down to it, we are. Who is Russia's number one enemy? We are. The BRICS are getting stronger, and we are on a collision course. So listen, we're going to talk about this World War III thing that's happening right now, but I think we all need to be very, very aware of what the consequences of tariffs are, short-term and long-term. Short-term, it's going to cost more. But here's what it's going to do. I mark my words. Every time when you study tariffs, the same thing has happened. It will bring jobs back to the U.S. It will force companies to do business within the U.S. or other countries, like let's just say Vietnam, where the tariffs are lower. Companies like, what's the mug company we always use, Stephen? Why am I forgetting that? The mug company, like the really good mugs that we always buy. What's that company called? What is it?
Yeti.
Yeti already made a public announcement that they're going to switch their factories to Vietnam because Vietnam's going to have a 10% tariff versus a 60% tariff over there in China. You're going to see that shift, which is good. You'll also see companies in the U.S. bulk up and build up, and more jobs will happen from it. It's the only outcome. It will force revenues of American companies to go higher. It will force pricing to go up. But listen, answer me this. Like, if the price of goods goes up, but your pay actually goes up, okay? We haven't really seen big pay increases in any industries in the U.S. because we outsource everything. We literally have been, if we want to get into geopolitics, like we literally have a world market right now. And what we've become accustomed to is just going to whatever country, whatever supermarket, if you will, in the world that has the cheapest price. But we have not paid any attention to what the impact is to the United States of America. I constantly reference this book. The End of the World is just the beginning. Read it. It's a book about geopolitics. And if you understand what that book says, you will understand why tariffs right now are a must. But not only that, if you really look at the relevance, and this is a Ray Dalio thing, you can watch it. He just did a video with that big podcast guy. His name will come to me, but watch that YouTube or that podcast of Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio talks about productivity. And if you follow how the economic machine works, it's productivity that matters. Okay. Then you got the short-term and the long-term debt cycles layered over productivity. Tariffs will absolutely increase productivity in the United States of America, which will then help our economy, which will then drive your wages up of American workers, which will also then force people in other countries, let's pick on China, to bring their asses over here and set up shop here. Why? Because they can't handle a 60% tariff. But let me tell you another thing that's going to do. And I don't really have a comment on these tariffs with Canada and Mexico. It's a little too early. Let that settle down and let's visit that in a couple of weeks when the news isn't talking about it and we can get the true picture. Because right now it's just a heightened, stupid thing that the media is making a big deal of. But focusing on China, China will 100% combat these tariffs with reducing their pricing. Their pricing will go down because it's highly inflated. Okay, the CCP or whatever business is, but it's all controlled by the state, they will reduce their prices to make it so that they can be affordable and still export goods to the United States of America. So pricing will go down as pricing goes up. It's a short-term problem. And if you can't handle a short-term problem to make sure that your kids have a better country to live in than what path we're on now, then shame on you. Like, seriously, maybe anyone that's so focused on the problem that tariffs are going to create in the near term, and they're not looking at the solution that it solves in the long term, needs the number one, study history. I had somebody bantering with me on social media with one of my posts. I said, stop. I said, why don't you do your fucking due diligence and your homework and then come back to me when you actually know what you're talking about, and then we can have a debate and an educated debate. And I had somebody else say Trump is the Fed. I'm like, okay, you need to do some research too and then come back to me. Like, I just wish people would do their own freaking homework or pay attention in history class before they start making dumb comments, because tariffs are going to be good for the United States of America. No ifs, no ands, and no buts about it, because number one, it will increase productivity in this country, which is very much needed. And we do need to focus on U.S. The U.S. has more resources than any other country. We have more land. We have the ability to increase our population, which is a huge thing, because every other country, including China, they're an aging population because they made the wrong decisions. Here in the United States of America, the one good thing we did is had babies. And lots of them. Not enough to support the baby boomers, but we're still better off than just about any other country. The only one that rivals us from a population standpoint, not population, but just new babies, okay? New generations, new people that could come into the workforce would be France. And I think France probably just has to do with lots of wine. I don't know. Steve, what's your take on any of this? I went a little long on tariffs because we already hit this a lot, but I wanted to make sure I covered that.
Yeah, no, I got nothing to add on the tariffs. I mean, I think you say it very eloquently, and it makes all the sense in the world. So I agree completely.
Yeah, perfect. So Lisa in Instagram is saying, husband and I are ready to set up policies. How do I reach out? Just go to chrisnaugle.com or beyourownbanker.com. And there's a little video. Just click the video. If you haven't already watched the video, watch it. And then there'll be a link to book a call. And in the chat, what we'll do is we'll put the comment or the link for booking a call, and then I'll throw it. There it is. And then I'll throw it up.
If you're ready to talk to a money mentor, it's mentors.beyourownbanker.com. And when you schedule a call, you can also refresh or watch the full IBC training video from that link as well. So it's very convenient and easy.
I'm going to put it in Instagram here real quick. Then we're going to move on to the next topic here. But I want to make sure I'm taking care of this stuff. Let's see, did I get that right? Yep. All right, there you go. So I put that link in there for Lisa coming in from Instagram today. Any of you have any comments on tariffs? Like, what's everybody's thought? What's everybody's thoughts on it? Flowers and Shroom says, my products will not be available in the U.S. because of tariffs, but that's okay because my biggest market is all of Asia and Europe. Oh my God, hold on. That's such a very important thing. So this is somebody coming in from abroad that has a company producing products, and they're just going to switch where their products are sold. You're going to see that happen. Lots of that. Countries that have tariffs placed on them that it doesn't make sense for them to send business here. Like let's pick on that mug company again. Like they're going to send business other places. Okay. They're going to increase their marketing in other countries where there are not tariffs. That's all. It's just going to be a shift, but it's going to make us stronger as a country. And that is my opinion. And I'll take that one to the grave with me. Let's see. Walmart's getting out of the DEI. Do you think Target will follow? Don't know. I haven't really followed that news yet. All right. Should we move on a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. There goes Lazy Cash, everybody. He's the star of the show. He's just lazy. He doesn't like talking much anymore. All right. Let's talk about TD Bank. TD Bank. Oh, TD Bank. So TD Bank supposedly was working in cahoots with the cartel. They had a really crazy, wicked money laundering program going on. And I think there was about 10 of them, okay, that were really tight. And somebody here in my office asked me the other day, how would regulators have not known about this? How would this not have, come out until now? But if you understand money laundering, which, myself, Stephen, my whole team does, because we have to go through continuing education, which is CE training. And so much of what we have to do training on is updates on money laundering in layering and placement. And it is such a difficult thing to track. They're so good at this, so smart at this. And when a bank has a bunch of people like this article is talking about working in the bank, running this money laundering, it's very hard for regulators to ever see it. The only way these things ever come out is when someone blows them in, when there's a whistleblower that forces them to go in and look. And even then, a lot of times they don't find it. But boy, oh boy, did they find it here. Stephen, what is this article talking about?
Yeah, just saying TD Bank, the 10th largest bank in the country, but it's been the #1 choice for criminal organizations laundering drug money. According to federal prosecutors, the bank's $3 billion plea deal shocked the financial world. Yeah, $3 billion plea deal. Prompted U.S. senators slam the Justice Department for absurd legal gymnastics, as she says were too soft on executives. For years, the bank prioritized growing its profits without investing in mandatory precautions to prevent cartels and other organized crime groups from using its systems to launder money, allowing crooks to shuffle $671 million in secretive transfers that should have been flagged and reported to authorities, sometimes with the help of corrupt bank employees, according to the plea agreement.
Crazy.
Completely useless Attorney General Merrick Garland, by making it serve as convenient for criminals, TD Bank became one. And that sums it up.
Yeah, that does sum it up right there. And Wells Fargo's got a little bit of a fire going on. You're not going to hear about it, and they'll probably settle and pay everybody off so that it gets quiet. But you really have to understand, when you look at banks, especially the big banks, this kind of shit's going on with all these banks, okay? Because it's money making for the banks. That's what they do. And when they get caught, they get slapped a fine. Now, that is a massive fine. So hopefully that wakes up the rest of the industry, Wells Fargo included, and gets them to start really sitting there and saying, hey, we need to really put some precautions in here to catch this kind of stuff before it happens. Because I know of a case right now, it's not nearly as big as that one with the cartels, but a case with Wells Fargo that I got to believe Wells Fargo is just going to do a massive payout just to shut it all up and keep them quiet because they don't want to be in the frontline news like TD America or like TD Bank did. But, like you're going to start hearing more and more about this as things slow, as the economy cools, the tide goes out, and you're going to start hearing a lot more about that kind of stuff. Stephen, let's pivot real quick. And if anyone has questions, put them in the Q&A. I love this one comment up here on Instagram. Tough love for a little bit in America. Absolutely. It's tough love. And that's what we need to understand. It's going to hurt a little in the beginning, but it's going to make a better country for our kids, a better economy and environment, a better United States of America for our kids. That should be the focus of everybody. And when somebody bitches about it, either they don't have kids or they are just selfish sons of bitches that really I have no time to deal with. But Bitcoin is another interesting thing. So Jay here in my office today asked me, what is Bitcoin? How is it? And, I kind of explained it to him, but I also told him to read a book, Inventing Bitcoin. It's not a hard book to read. It's a short book, but it does such a fantastic job of explaining Bitcoin, its use case, and what problem Bitcoin actually solves. But here's the problem with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a future. There's no question. I own, just for the record, I own 0 Bitcoin right now. 0. I don't own any cryptos. I was swing trading them, and now I'm just out because this volatility, this craziness, and some people are like, oh my God, you missed out on so much money. Yeah, but I didn't miss out on anything because so many of the people that think they're wealthy or think they're rich because of their Bitcoin holdings, what they will do is they will not get rid of it. They will hold it, and then it will go back down, and then they will sell it when it gets down in the 30s or the 20s, or who knows where we're going to test. But look at that growth pattern on it right there. I mean, you got no support line. You got nothing to support the pricing that it's at. And I think it's going to go higher. I truly do. You're at 94,895, which is up 477 today. I think you could touch 100,000 before the end of the year. Heck, you could even into early 2025, you might even touch $150. I don't know, but trajectories would say that that's where it could go. I got a whole article right here from one of the economists. It says Bitcoin leading stocks up. And he's saying, it's a natural peak in its 4-year cycle, but it would not come out until late 2025, where it could reach 150,000 on its current trajectory. But he also goes on to warn that is the most volatile major asset class today. So anybody that's investing in Bitcoin, you better have big balls, because that son of a pup is just so volatile, which brings about another problem. When we talk about the use case for Bitcoin and what is the long-term use, what problem is Bitcoin going to solve long-term? Now, there's lots of problems it can solve, but one of the ones a lot of people think is that Bitcoin could be used as a currency. It could be used as a means of exchange. And it is being used as a means of exchange. If I'm not mistaken, Trump bought pizza or something like that, or bought dinner or something like that with Bitcoin. But let's just talk about that. Strategy, bold Bitcoin strategy drives unprecedented stock growth. So yeah, Michael Saylor, that was another person that was in this article. They were talking about it. So if you really want to kind of get a good grasp on it, follow Michael Saylor's lead. He MicroStrategy, he's been pretty good about telling people where Bitcoin's going. But again, back to Bitcoin and its use and its problem, it cannot really be a viable means of exchange. Right now, it is far too volatile. Just imagine this, today it's at 94,000. Let's say, you're doing an exchange with somebody, but then tomorrow it goes down to 80,000. I'm hypothetically, okay? Like that's too big of a swing. The dollar doesn't move that much in price, but Bitcoin is just far too volatile to be used as a true means of exchange. And it would really hinder trade if that's what it was, because they need to find stability in it. But how do you find stability in something that really has no intrinsic value? But people could say the dollar has no intrinsic value, and they're absolutely correct. But there are assets that back the dollar, but it's just far and few. I mean, we're off the gold standard. So I guess the dollar is no better than Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's no better than the dollar. So they're both there, but the dollar is a lot more stable pricing wise than Bitcoin is. So, I mean, a lot of people can say a lot about Bitcoin. I'm no expert in it, but I definitely can see that there's a future. I can see that there's definitely a lot of upside to the price, but it's just going to come with lots of risk and lots of volatility. And I want no part of that.
And here's a couple of pretty good takes just on the Bitcoin. I found this exchange pretty interesting, and I'll just share it on the screen and just talk through it real fast. So we just talked about Michael Saylor, who's the CEO of MicroStrategy, and basically they've been buying Bitcoin now. That's all they do really for the last several years. So, he just came out and announced, when was this? 2 days ago, MicroStrategy has acquired 55,500 Bitcoin for around $5.4 billion at 97,000 per Bitcoin, and has achieved Bitcoin yield of 35% quarter to date and 59.3% year to date. As of 11/24, we hodl, which is just like the Bitcoin term for holding, 386,700 Bitcoin acquired for at about $22 billion with an average of about 56,000 per Bitcoin. So you look at a comment like this from Jason with the All In podcast. He's a big billionaire tech investor guy. If you don't follow him, definitely do. They got a pretty good podcast called the All In podcast. But he said you're taking out. So basically said you're taking out loans against your Bitcoin holdings in order to buy a lot more Bitcoin, which lowers the supply of Bitcoin, which makes Bitcoin go up, which makes the stock go up, which creates a gap between the Bitcoin holdings and the corporate valuation. What's the ratio today, he's asking, which makes folks short the stock, which creates a short squeeze, which makes the stock go up more, which makes the gap between holdings and valuation higher and allows more loans against the stock, basically so you can buy more Bitcoin. And he's kind of mocking them, innovative. Are there any risks? So it's kind of interesting to see these different strategies and counterpoints to what some of these big guys are doing in the Bitcoin space. And what's that really doing to what the everyday person is looking at with value of Bitcoin. Does that make sense?
Absolutely is. Absolutely.
Very smart people out there.
You just got to really, if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, first off, the first piece of advice I'd give anybody, if you're going to invest in any crypto, is understand what you're investing in. Get to know, like, and understand what you're investing in. I would say probably 90% or better of crypto investors don't have the slightest clue what they're buying, what they're investing in. Warren Buffett is one of the most famous fundamental investors, but everything Warren invests in, he deeply understands. He understands their financials. He understands the fundamentals of the company. He understands the opportunity and why there's an opportunity for growth or why it's valued at what it is and why that's a good valuation. He also understands when a company is overvalued and making no sense, kind of like what that article says, because that's why he is unloading Apple stock and Bank of America and a lot of others and sitting on more cash than he's ever sat on ever before in history because he sees an opportunity coming. But you can never time the market. And Warren would be the first to tell you, you can't time the market and you can't fight the Fed. And again, that's kind of what I was mentioning about Trump. Like, you can't fight the Fed. And if you do, you're going to lose you're going to lose every single time. But it's just, if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, get to know what you're investing in. Secondarily, have a long-term strategy. Literally, like, buy it. Don't even look at it because it's going to be volatile. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. When it goes down, buy more. I think one of the best strategies for any investor, but hypothetically right now we're talking about Bitcoin investors. So if you're a Bitcoin investor, the smartest thing you can do, and all the platforms allow for this, set up a dollar cost averaging strategy. Every week, bi-weekly or monthly, just buy a position, take a position. Doesn't matter where you buy. If you buy at 97, if you buy at 40, just keep dollar cost averaging. That's what Saylor's doing, just in a much larger scale. If you dollar cost average, your chance of success is greatly improved if you don't let your emotions get involved when it goes down. Because here's what's going to happen. There's a ton of people buying Bitcoin right now. Tons. I mean, that's why the price is going up. There's always somebody buying and somebody selling because Bitcoin is a finite amount. So there's always got to be somebody selling and somebody buying. So there's a lot of people selling at 90,000 where we're at today. Good for them. Hopefully they're profiting the hell out of it. And there's other people thinking there's upside and they're buying, like Michael Saylor just bought more. But what you have to understand is when the price does go down, which it will, stocks or Bitcoin, I don't know which one will be the first to fall. It looks like Bitcoin seems to be leading stocks. So if Bitcoin goes up, stocks go up. If Bitcoin goes down, stocks go down. And you can almost see it. It's almost directly correlated. And I've been saying that for a while. But when it goes down, don't sell it. Buy more. Dollar cost averaging takes that risk out because you're just always buying. But that's what happens when stocks go down, when Bitcoin goes down. The average investor who does not know, like, or understand what they're investing in and really is just putting money into something blindly because that's what they were told to do or because who knows why they do it, because emotionally they thought it was a good idea. they get spooked, they get scared, their emotion kicks in, fear kicks in, and they sell at the exact wrong time. And when they do, there's always somebody that's going to pick it up and buy it. And that's the mistake. If you're going to buy Bitcoin, great. Buy it and hold it, but have a plan. Like if you're going to buy it at 94,000 today, what's your exit? Is it 100? Are you looking to hold it to 100, 120? Set it in stone, write it on paper, put it on your wall, type it in your computer. What's the exit price? And when it gets there, get rid of it. Follow your own rules. Don't break the rules. And I think you'll be a lot better off if you invest in anything with that same idea. I have been investing for, I don't even know how long, since I've been 18 years old. So that's a long time, being 47 now. And I've not always followed the rules, but as I've gotten older and wiser, I have very definitive rules. I mean, everybody on my team, from Steven to everybody else, knows my rules. And sometimes they don't jive with them. They're like, why wouldn't you have done this? Why wouldn't you have done that? Why'd you sell this? Because that's my rules. That's how I do things, and the only disruption to my rule is tax planning. So recently, like I had a whole lot of treasury bonds. I sold them all, but I've been buying them back because there's a 30-day period, like that. Basically, I had them all written down. Here's where I sold. That's the pricing I sold at. I knew it, and I've been buying back. And I kind of got lucky. So when I started buying treasuries back, I bought them back at a lower price than I sold them for, but I sold them at a loss. And I took that loss in 2024 as a passive loss. So that helps me because now I get to write that loss off against, other passive income. So it's a good planning strategy. So if you don't know how to do that, get with your CPA. I can't give you tax advice, but that's just what I did. All right. Let's hit some of the things. I love that Chris P is doing his part, having their third baby. Folks, go out there, do the naughty, and pump out some babies because the United States needs kids. We need to replace all those baby boomers. And no disrespect to any of the baby boomers, but I'm reading that book that I was talking about, and they talk a lot about the problems the baby boomers caused and how we're cleaning up their mess. So baby boomers, love you. It's our parents for the most part. My parents are baby boomers. Love you. But man, you fuck some shit up. And we're trying to clean it up. And I'm a Gen Xer. Okay. So there's not enough of me to fix it, but there's enough millennials. Okay. So Gen X, millennials, and the younger generations, we just got to keep having babies, keep pumping them out. And then that will ensure the United States of America wins that war, which will be a very important war, because if there are not people to take the jobs of the baby boomers as they retire, boy, oh boy, will the United States nosedive like China is, like Japan already did, like every other country, maybe not India. India's pumping out kids, but they definitely aren't where they need to be. France, they're doing pretty good. So I guess maybe the answer is drink some more wine and do it at night when you go out on date night. And well, Chris will give you the rest of the story because he's on his third kid. He knows more about what happens there. All right. What if you have bad health? I think that's referring to the policies. Try again until you can't, and then find somebody else to insure. All right. So, Stephen, anything else you want to hit before we move on to World War III?
World War III is always fun. Just a quick update on the housing market, though. Just like to kind of keep everyone updated what's going on with mortgages and whatnot. So home buyer demand for mortgages jumps 12% after the first interest rate drop in over 2 months. So applications for a mortgage to purchase increased 12%. We're 52% higher than the same week 1 year ago. The average contract interest rate for a conforming balance decreased from 6.86 to 6.86 from 6.9%. So not much of a move there, but enough to get some people up and putting in applications to purchase a home. So applications to refinance a home loan dropped 3% for the week, but we're still up 119% from the same time last year. So seems like the housing market's still kind of just chilling. Don't see much going on with it.
Chilling. Yep. Netflix and chill.
That's it.
Yeah. Netflix and chill also helps with making babies. So trying to get everybody to be thankful here as we go into Thanksgiving, but also to start thinking about the future of this country and doing your part. And that just means all of you folks got to go out there and Netflix and chill and pump some babies out. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to World War III. So I got this article, and I, like I said many times, we get a lot of our info from white papers that are put out by various economists. They're long reads, so I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but I want to do this one. This one talks about, you know, we're going back to the missiles, okay, the long-range missiles that were fired from Ukraine into Russian territory, which is an act of war. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. That is by definition a pure act of war. And Russia could have declared war on the United States immediately after that. They have not yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to. But here is how it's being talked about. Okay, so this economist has some intel in Russia. Okay, and I'm just going to read this to you. The Speaker of the lower house of the Duma, the Russian parliament, recently I'll just say this, recently said that Joe Biden's actions authorizing long-range missile attacks from Ukraine into Russia indicated that Biden was seeking what they called a Russian funeral. Or sorry, a Viking funeral. Sorry, I misspoke about that. A Viking funeral. If any of you ever watched the show The Vikings, you'll understand this. It's where, you know, a leader comes out of power, and basically they put them on a longboat, you know, put all their belongings on it, you know, put any people that are close to them on this longboat. They set it on fire and they sail it out. Now, that's not really what happened, because down here, it kind of goes into what this really means. But I want to read this part here. Let's see, description of the Biden's recent moves in Ukraine. That's where Biden plans to leave his mark on history. Unfortunately, we may all be the real victims if World War III starts and a nuclear holocaust results, which is a real possibility as of now. So now let me kind of come down here and talk a little bit about these missiles, the ATACMS, okay? And there's a whole thing for that, but they're missiles that have capabilities of about 200 miles, give or take, you know, a mile here, a mile there. But this is the interesting thing. Those missiles cannot be launched without coordinates given by the United States of America. That's already been determined, right? So now Biden, and this is how they describe it. So Biden's in the jungles of Brazil at the G20 summit. And at this point, a week and a half later, after the missiles were sent, the Defense Department has denied that they had any input into the decisions to fire U.S. missiles into Russia. They're washing their hands, saying, well, no, the DOD, we did not do that. That was the State Department and the National Security Council. So now they're pushing blame off onto the State Department. It's just like, where does this shit end? But essentially, it goes into this whole long talk about where we're at and what potentially could happen, and all this different stuff about Russia and what Russia is saying and how they're literally looking at handling this. First off, and I've said this before, but Biden's already promised a peaceful transfer. Okay. You know, he met with Trump in the White House, you know, all that stuff happened, you know, said it was all good.
And he was happy. He was happy. He was smiling.
He was, yeah, they looked happy for the first time in a while. And Jill was not wearing a red dress like she was on election day, but nonetheless, they looked happy. But please explain to me why, at this stage, why would the Biden administration or whoever the hell did it, why would they do that? Why would they authorize a missile, knowing that it's an act of war, into Russia, when we know that Trump has vowed that he's going to try to come to a settlement between Ukraine and Russia, which won't be good, I'm sure, for Ukraine, but, you know, it'll be good for the world, because like the 1,000-day war, 700,000 Russian fathers, mothers, and kids have all perished and died in this war. Over 700,000. I don't know the number for Ukraine, but I'm sure it's in the hundreds of thousands. So that's a lot of people. It's a lot of people who have died in this 1,000-day war, and it's just got to end. You know, I don't even know what they're fighting over, but now we're being thrown into the war by the Biden administration or whoever it is. It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense at all, unless this is part of the plan and Biden has nothing to do with this. And they start World War III, call executive order, which then forces that transfer of power to happen, because we're now in the midst of a war. Or they'd start a war, we're in World War III, and then Trump has to take over while we're in a war and cannot get any of his policies or stuff done because he's trying to fight a war. I mean, I don't know, folks. It just all stinks. It smells like the bathroom you walk into in a public place after, somebody that just ate a whole pound of chili just left the stall. There's something not right about it. Something not right about it. You're right, Morgan. He said Trump committed to ending wars. And it just seems like the other side is trying to start one, and that would not be a good war. No Harry Truman motto of the buck stops here with Biden. Yeah, that's coming in from Instagram. I don't know. What's everybody else got to say with it? Stephen, you have any comments on it?
I don't know. I feel like they're escalating things right now just to kind of get to a point where, okay, we can now sit down and let's hash this out and find a conclusion to it. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like the opposite of the calm before the storm. It's like the storm before the calm. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at with stuff right now. And I don't think it's World War III personally. I don't think it's going to get there. I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think Russia can even make that happen at this point. But it's scary to think about what could happen, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, Russia's got lots of nukes, man, and they're definitely talking about those nukes. I think that's more of a deterrent, and I think that's what Trump will bring to the White House is a much better deterrent.
That's what I'm saying. I think they're setting it up where Trump can then step in and say, okay, let's get this thing resolved. I think that's where we're at right now.
I hope you're right. Yeah, I don't know, because when you read some of this stuff, it's just frightening to read.
Yeah. Definitely.
Anyway.
One thing, though, before I do want to hit, though, before World War III gets here, hopefully we do have a big event coming up in February. So it's time to start planning for that. So anyone watching, if you guys want to join us, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we had our annual BYOB planning meetings at Buffalo at the BYOB headquarters last week. And we decided that in 2025, we're cutting back on events. And so what that means is all of our campfire, all of our members, all of our clients, all of our friends at this point, we have less opportunities to get out there and be together in person. We're going to continue with all of our webinars, our weekly shows and everything like that. But, the real value is getting together in a room for a few days, going out and living life and building relationships and learning from each other and helping each other. And that's exactly what we've been doing with several of our events for the last few years, Chris. And one of the definitely the best event we put on a few times a year is called The Experience. And we named it The Experience because that's what life's all about, is going out and having experiences together and being together and building together and growing together. So we've been doing 2 to 3 experiences now every year for the last several years. But in 2025, we decided just to do one. And it's at the beginning of the year and it's in February. So if you want to join us for probably the most impactful event you'll attend all year, now's the time to get a ticket and make your travel plans, because we're doing this thing in Sundance, which is right outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. And if you've never been to Sundance, I mean, Chris, how would you describe Sundance?
Surreal. It's just a magical place. And there's no way for me to explain it. I mean, people think of Sundance like, oh, it's a ski resort. You just have to go skiing. No. You could literally go to Sundance, never touch foot on the snow, and just have the most amazing, magical experience. And now they've just opened hot springs. So now they got hot springs there, which they didn't have before. And I think I probably know where they did that, which before a couple of people at the experience went in and did cold plunges into this area. I mean, there's natural creeks and brooks and ponds, and then there's the owl. I don't know how else to say it. There's the owl, and you won't understand the owl until you understand the owl.
Yeah, it's the truth. We'll keep that one secret for anyone that doesn't know, but you'll want to know. Trust me, the owl's the spot. I always describe Sundance, especially this time of year with Christmas. You get the little snow globes and, the kids shake them up and it creates the magical scene. It's all in all the Christmas movies. If you want to call Santa, you shake the snow globe and he'll arrive. And I love it. Like I love the holidays. I love Christmas time. And that's the way I describe Sundance, is if you could take a real world place in the United States of America and put it within a snow globe, it would be Sundance, Utah. And so bottom line is, though, is we're all meeting out there. It's going to be the high-level executives from our team, myself, Chris, people like Helock Joe and Devin Burr and Craig Yenny. We're going to have different billionaires out there like Randy Garn and Sean Finnegan and the Foolers and lots of really cool people that are high-level business people. But more importantly, they love hanging out. They love talking. They love sharing experiences together. So we're all going to be out there in February. So I just wanted to bring that up, that now's the time to get that done, to get your travel plan, to get your ticket. We limit this thing to how many people come, 25 people. That's all we allow. So get your tickets now. It sells out every single time. So I just wanted to make that clear before you go out and start all your holiday spending and everything like that. When you're in that mode, get your tickets for Sundance, because it's going to be a lot of fun. And I can put the link over there, but just reach out to us if you want to go, and we'll get you the link to purchase your tickets and all the details and everything like that. But it's going to be an amazing time. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, Chris, you mentioned it's not just a ski resort. I mean, you were a professional snowboarder. I've snowboarded my entire life. I've been to countless resorts around the country, and it really is like no other resort that I've ever been to before. So just really looking forward to that in 2025. I just wanted to mention it's the only experience we're doing at the beginning of the year. So looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Absolutely. And folks, like a lot of people, when they hear Sundance and they're thinking, that I'm, a snowboarder, that it's all going to be around snowboarding. Actually, that will probably be the least that it's like we will definitely go up on the hill and ride, but that will not be that won't be the majority of what we do. So if you don't ski, you don't snowboard, you don't want to be, out there in the cold, then you definitely need to be at this experience at Sundance, because you have it all backwards. That is not what this is about. And definitely you will go on journeys and experiences that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And then I think I mentioned it, and then you'll always end up at the Owl, which will make all those memories come to life vividly. Kind of just like Kamala doing that talk. Those eggnogs got to her, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, with that being said, folks, that's going to wrap us up for this episode of What the F Happened. And I want to also just give a personal message to all of you for joining us. Thank you so very much. And it is certainly a time to be grateful for everything we have, and to be very thankful for the life that we have, especially here in the United States of America, where literally there's no better place in the world than the United States of America. And it is our time to certainly do our part to make it better. And that is our duty. And I am thankful that all of you are here with that same common goal. Let's stick to it. But tomorrow, let's shut down. Let's enjoy family. Let's share love and just be grateful to be with those that are close to us. And with that being said, thanks for joining us. We will see you this afternoon on Wealth Webinar.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.